All right, let's jump right into this explainer. I want you to picture this. You are stepping up to the very first tee of a Pete Dye golf course. Just imagine the sheer psychological pressure of it. We're not just talking about playing a difficult sport here. We're talking about stepping into a meticulously crafted mental arena. You see, Pete Dye didn't just design golf courses to punish golfers, he designed them to challenge their imagination. And by doing that, he became a true rebel who forever changed the entire landscape of championship golf.
When you walk onto that tee box, you immediately get hit with a very specific set of physical and mental sensations. The fairway, it seems impossibly narrow. The bunkers look absolutely larger than life. And the water hazards, well, they just seem to creep closer and closer with every single practice swim you take. Your yardage book is giving you the cold hard numbers, but your eyes start whispering doubts before you even take the club back. Long before you've struck your first shot, Pete Dye has already entered the match, and he's gotten right inside your head.
And that perfectly tees up his unapologetic approach to the sport, which is summed up in his famous motto, "Golf is not a fair game, so why build a fair golf course?" This motto perfectly captures Pete Dye as a rebel who completely flipped the script on traditional golf architecture. He wasn't interested in making everyone feel comfortable out there. He wanted to test your patience, and far more importantly, he wanted to test your confidence.
So, let's get into Section 1, Designing for the Mind. There's a really stark contrast between mid-century American golf architecture and Dye's radical strategy-based philosophy. Back then, a lot of traditional American championship courses were basically designed to be visually pleasing puzzles, often solved by sheer brute strength. They heavily rewarded raw power. But Pete Dye, he was a real game changer. He believed intelligence should matter just as much as distance. He introduced a philosophy that rewarded thoughtful play, utilized visual deception, and offered multiple strategic options. He literally demanded that you think your way around the course.
What's really fascinating is how he built this psychological trap, proving he was testing your confidence, not just your ball striking. Pete understood something profound. The ball never moves, and the course never changes. The only thing that changes from shot to shot is the golfer's confidence. So, step 1 is visual deception. A bunker positioned 20 yards short might look like it's directly in play, or water reflecting the sky seems absolutely massive. Step 2 is the doubt that creeps in. He's asking you, what are you actually seeing? Do you trust your swing or your eyes? And finally, step 3, the decision. Do you play it safe or do you attack?
Moving on to Section 2, Origins of a Rebel.
If we trace the timeline of his life, you can really see where this rebellious spirit came from. Born in 1925, Pete grew up wandering the fairways of the Urbana Country Club in Ohio, a course his father actually built. Even as a boy, he was always observing golfers. He noticed beginners choosing the wrong targets and experienced players avoiding trouble. He was studying human behavior long before he ever moved a single pile of dirt. Then, serving in the U.S. Army during World War II gave him this profound perspective. The war taught him discipline, resourcefulness, and fearlessness. Most importantly, it taught him that life was just too short to spend worrying about criticism. He learned to completely ignore the noise. And you know, that military-hardened attitude totally defined his career. He never designed a course to win a popularity contest. He designed because he believed his ideas were interesting. That willingness to be unpopular, it resulted in an astounding resume. He designed or renovated more than 200 courses worldwide, over a career spanning 6 decades. His scorecard reads as a perfect 5 stars across the board for innovation, championship impact, strategy, visual drama, and leaving a lasting legacy.
Next up, Section 3, the perfect creative partnership.
Now, of course, no hero acts alone, right? To truly understand Pete Dye's success, we have to look at one of the greatest creative partnerships in the history of the sport. And the crucial anchor of that partnership is one simple question. Is it fair? This was the filter applied by his wife, Alice Dye. Alice wasn't just his partner in life. She was a Hall of Fame golfer and a highly respected architect in her own right. She understood the game deeply from the player's point of view. While Pete supplied the wild, bold imagination, Alice supplied the vital, realistic perspective. She wasn't interested in gimmicks. Whenever Pete dreamed up something incredibly intimidating, Alice would ask this question to ground his ideas into strategic playability. They challenged each other, making every single hole stronger than either of them could have designed alone. Which leads us to Section 4, the Scottish inspiration. Back in the 1960s, Pete and Alice took a transformative trip to Great Britain. While walking the ancient, rumpled fairways of courses like St. Andrews, Pete had a massive revelation.
He realized that nature didn't need to be bulldozed into perfection, it needed to be respected. He discovered this concept of the ground as architect, allowing the natural landscape itself to dictate the play and invite thought from the golfer. He looked around and asked himself why these centuries-old courses felt so natural and why every bounce was so wonderfully unpredictable.
He was out there, carefully noting elements like rolling terrain, crazy uneven lies, steep pot bunkers, the heavy influence of the wind, and clever angles. Every single one of these natural features invited the golfer to think rather than simply swing away. Pete returned home totally inspired. He didn't want to just copy Scotland. He wanted to capture that unpredictable, highly strategic spirit and bring it straight to America. He wanted golfers back home to feel that exact same curiosity and uncertainty.
All right, Section 5, the Harbour Town Revolution.
His big opportunity came in 1969 at Sea Pines Plantation on Hilton Head Island. The developer, Charles Fraser, wanted a course that blended into the landscape, and Pete delivered Harbour Town golf links. His mantra was simple: trees over bulldozers, precision over power, smart over strong. Instead of clearing out the land, Pete routed the holes intimately through towering pines and majestic live oaks. When it opened, the pros are genuinely shocked. Some even complained. The fairways were incredibly narrow, and the greens were remarkably small. It was a complete revolution because it rewarded the smartest golfer, not the strongest. And the proof of his genius is in the number 50. More than 50 years later, the RBC Heritage played at Harbour Town remains one of the PGA Tour's most respected and beloved tournaments. It proved definitively that championship golf could be highly strategic and visually dramatic without relying solely on massive length. His strategic vision won out, announcing a completely new era in American golf architecture. Finally, Section 6, a lasting legacy of memorable decisions.
I want to reiterate this foundational quote from Pete Dye: "Every hole should ask a question before it rewards an answer." You see, Pete Dye never measured his success by universal approval. He actually smiled when players argued about his courses, because to him, debate meant that people truly cared. He knew that a lot of attractive golf courses simply fade from memory over time. But you don't forget a Pete Dye course. You remember the dramatic carry, the huge risk that paid off, or the shot you wish you'd never even attempted. He fundamentally believed that memorable golf comes directly from memorable decisions. Which leaves us with the ultimate Pete Dye question: do I play it safe or do I go for it? Pete spent his entire life crafting landscapes that forced people to confront their own doubts and make a choice. So taking a page right out of his book, I'll turn it directly to you. When you are faced with a heavily guarded green, a narrow path, or honestly just a moment of uncertainty and risk in your own life, do you play it safe or do you go for it? Definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep asking those questions.